Hello, and happy Pokemon Day. So, today, I'm going to be talking about Sword and Shield. So, today, I'm going to be talking about Sword and Shield. Yeah. I know, DP remakes just got announced, but here I am talking about Sword and Shield, because of course I am. So, what in particular am I talking about? Well, with the new games being revealed, I would like to talk about things that I enjoyed and didn't enjoy from Sword and Shield. Because then, ultimately, I can make my decision on, like, what I want from the Diamond and Pearl remakes. Next week, I will have a video coming out about not my expectations, but my desires for Diamond and Pearl remakes. But today, I'll be doing 10 things that I think, I'll be doing 5 things that I think Game Freak did well, and 5 things that I wish Game Freak did differently. Why? Because why not? I will be alternating between the two and ending on a positive note because, well, in the end, Sword and Shield are great games, and I want them to be acknowledged as such. So here I am playing not Sword and Shield music, because I actually haven't added any Sword and Shield music to this playlist. It's fine. Just a little fun fact. Anyway, with that being said, let's get started. So, if you remember, right when Sword and Shield were announced, I made a video saying 10 things that I wanted and 10 things I didn't want for Sword and Shield. Now, instead of saying everything that I was disappointed about not being fulfilled, I'm gonna pick one representative to represent my frustration of that entire list. And that is something that was fulfilled. Number 1 things I wish they did better, the GTS. The GTS technically isn't a part of Sword and Shield, but because it affected my experience with Sword and Shield, I am choosing to include it. This also applies to news, by the way, because news can shape someone's experience of the game. The GTS is an interesting creation. It's a thing that a lot of people sort of hate on because of how unreasonable people are with their requests, but at the same time, it's also just useful, and that's the fact of the matter. That it's a useful thing for completing the decks. If you don't have friends of the sort, it is one of your most powerful tools for completing the decks. It's where you can find every Pokemon you can't obtain with just yourself. And then Gen 7, and then Gen 8 happened. The problem with the Gen 8 Pokedex is that not the Pokedex. The problem with the GTS is that it's in home. Now, this wouldn't seem like much of a problem, but it is when you consider that Pokemon can't hold items in home. One of the most powerful and one of my most used methods for getting trade evolutions was to deposit the pre-evolved Pokemon with an item asking for its evolution. That way, people would still, trade. But Pokemon also can't even evolve in home, so regardless of whether you can hold items, this method is useless. which means I just have to ask for evolved Pokemon on home, because I don't really have anything to offer. Now, some of my demands were met somewhat reasonably, and I didn't have to scour through the entire GTS for some of them. Others, like Aromatisse and Slurpuff, were actually hell. So much that I just had to ask friends. Like, there is no reason those two should be that hard to obtain. I get that they're fresh and exclusives, and I get that they're also trade evolutions. But no one likes them! Like, they're so unpopular. Why is this so hard to get? But, you know, just saying. If you have a Slurpuff and an Aromatisse, it is a wild card. Use it to get whatever you wish on the GTS. Because you can probably get some pretty good stuff. That being said, I hope the GTS in future games is implemented in the main game instead of just in Pokemon Home. Yes, I realize how picky that sounds. But I just want it to be good. Number one thing that they did well. Sword and Shield are the very first games to ever implement this into their game, and I applaud them for it. Because it was done really well. Number one, for things they did well, is the DLCs. The DLCs are really good. But rather than just releasing an enhanced third version, that's another $60 I have to pay, they just went, what if we just release DLCs? And they did. And they turned out really good. The Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra both have their own merit, and I'm not going to go too deep into them, because if you haven't experienced the stories of both, I don't really want to spoil it. Although I'm going to end up doing it anyway. Regardless of whether or not you like Sword and Shield, you do have to agree that DLCs is a good idea. In concept, even if you didn't like the DLCs. Like, if you didn't like the DLCs, I don't know what to tell you. But, I personally feel like they were worth the $30. They both added a sizable chunk of content, and both of them introduced something that did really help the competitive scene a lot, which I like. The Isle of Armor introduced Max Suit, which allowed people to get Gigantamax Pokemon without having to hunt them in raids. Which meant that, first of all, they're easier to retain, and second of all, their shinies are easier to retain, which, in my opinion, is the more important part. And the Crown Tundra introduced the ability capsule, but for hidden abilities, which we have been asking for so long, and we finally got it. And it's so rewarding to have. But yeah. The DLCs overall introduced really good content, and I feel like they're worth it. They're worth $30. Like, honestly, and I hope Game Freak continues to do DLCs. Now, I did say that news was an important part of shaping the game, and while this didn't ruin the game for me because I could easily counteract it, it was a bit of a disappointment. Number two, for things I wish they did differently, starters. I was actually pretty vocal about this, or somewhat, in all of my trailer reactions. I was like, can we get the starters? Hopefully next time we get the starters. I kept saying it in every single video. Like, see you next time when we get the starters, as of trying to hint at it, because I wanted to see the starter evolutions. Because they never revealed them. Now, I understand that there's a bit of, like, people wanting that feeling of mystery where you pick a starter and you're like, I don't know what it evolves into, and that's the fun part. I don't. Because I don't want to evolve the starter, and then it's just bad, and I hate it. Like, what if I picked Chespin, and then I got Quilladin, and then I hated it? Because, you know, Quilladin's my least favorite starter and all. I would have reset the entire game. I actually would have reset. Like, I would have been like, screw this, I'm playing with Forky now. Like, I'm doing this again. Because I'm not playing with 20 levels with a Quilladin. Which is why I kinda wanted the starters to be revealed. But they weren't, sadly. I did end up looking them up, and also ironically, with the main leak that was released. And the day before Sword and Shield, I saw a lot of Pokemon via leaks. I ended up seeing what they looked like, but I looked them up the next day anyway to check their base stats. And, you know, like, I guess it's not too much of a bad thing because I can always just look them up when the game releases and make a quick decision there. But I like knowing what they look like because it means I can gather other people's opinions on them. And oh, I thought the Oranges was dead. Just next time reveal the starters. That's all I ask. It's literally all I ask. I do understand why they did it though, with everyone being so vocal about how Sun and Moon kind of ruined that new feeling because of how so many Pokemon revealed. They're like, maybe we should dial it back a bit. The starters is among the Pokemon that maybe you should reveal. I'm kind of surprised they didn't reveal them, because in Sun and Moon, the starters evolutions were only revealed because they got leaked anyway. I guess we took a different approach though. Number 2 for things done right. Ironically, I'm doing one right now. This is a part of the DLC that I thought deserved its own category, because it's just so good. Dynamax Adventures. They're fun, they're entertaining, they are really good with shiny hunting. I really enjoy them. Dynamax Adventures are basically what I'm doing right now. They're little mini games where you have to pick where you fight 4 Pokemon, fight them in a max raid battle without shields, and then what you do from there is you pick a specific path that gives you the best chances of fighting the legendary. If you lose 4 Pokemon at all, in all 4 of the battles, in one of the battle at all, you get kicked out. If one battle takes 10 turns, you get kicked out. It just happened to me twice now. That Neo King just walled our entire team, and we sat there depressingly for 10 whole turns, not knowing how to do anything. So, it was not a fun time. But why are these so fun? Well, first of all, it provides some nice strategy. It's fun having to converse with people. And it's also really useful for shiny hunting. The odds are 1 in 300, 1 in 100 if you have the shiny charm. So, honestly, if you haven't gotten a shiny, like, just hop in a DA and you'll get one eventually. Hopefully it won't take as long as I did. I took so many. It was not fun. It just was not fun. Like, at all. But, you know what? It doesn't matter now, because I have 2 shinies from DAs. I have not gotten a shiny legendary yet, and hopefully I get mine soon, but shiny legendaries are, I'd say, fairly easy to obtain. They're pretty time consuming, but at the same time you get really good shiny odds, so I think it's a fair trade. They're kind of hard to do with NPCs, because NPCs are, let's face it, stupid, but you know, they can be done. There are certain Pokemon that are obviously easier to take out than others, and while that's good, I plan to shiny hunt all the Pokemon that I can before, you know, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl come out. And yeah, it's just a fun little mini-game to do in your spare time if you want to shiny hunt. A much more fun shiny hunting method than the method they gave us to start the game, that they never fixed. So, you know, swings and roundabouts, I suppose. We got there in the end. We got a good shiny hunting method. But also, they just provide a fun experience. And yeah, they also help you get all those competitive items that I was talking about that I praised earlier, among others. So, you know, I appreciate TAs for that, because of what Dynite Ore gives. Number 3 of things I did not like. This is my personal opinion, and you may feel differently, but I personally felt like some of the reveals for the game were really poor. I already talked about how I didn't like that the starters weren't revealed, but there were also just things that I didn't like that they did. Mainly, SwSh and Ponyta / Rapidash. These two probably were significantly underhyped simply because of how painful the reveal trailers were. SwSh wasn't as bad, it was hinted at and then it was revealed in a 37-second trailer. The problem is the length of the trailer and how it inconvenienced some people. I am speaking on other people's behalf here because I saw someone's reaction to the SwSh clip and them go insane because they woke up at 6 in the morning for a 37-second video. And if you know who I'm talking about, you have good taste in content creators if you like her. I didn't watch the video when it was released because I had other things to do, but I do think that 37 seconds, a small 37-second video revealing one Pokemon was a little unnecessary. But I could also just be dumb, it's honest, it's whatever you care about. The main thing I want to talk about, though, is what everyone's expecting. Galarian, Ponyta, and Rapidash have probably seen the worst revelation of any Pokemon. The 24-hour stream was a great idea and concept. We sit here and we see Pokemon appear. Then they just went... It was not a good idea. It just wasn't. Sitting there for a grueling amount of time, watching a camera, hoping something will happen, it just wasn't something I could do. Granted, I probably should have done something else rather than just watch, but the minute I went on Twitter, I got met with an aggressive viewer because I was streaming, so that's kind of why I was like, alright, guess I'm not doing that anymore. Because I was bored. The fact of the matter is, I was just bored. Because it was boring. It wasn't a fun experience. And I'm not saying anyone forced my hand to go, but it wasn't exactly the best idea. And then the Pokemon would later be revealed, and the dip wasn't. It never got officially revealed. What a sad fate. They easily could have just matched the two in the same video, especially since they're version exclusives, and yet they were trying to build up hype. And it worked for SwSh, it did not work for Galarian Ponyta. There are probably people who are just traumatized whenever they hear the Glimwood Tangle music just because of that 24-hour stream. And to them, I deeply apologize. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. I'm genuinely sorry to anyone, to anyone who has had to go through that. I just hope they never do that again. It was not good. Number 3 for things they did better. Now, Game Freak has been doing this since Generation 6, in my opinion, but they've been making steps to make competitive more user-friendly, and that is the same. And there is the same case in Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield is no exception, would have been a better wording for that. They just did a really good job with, all that competitive stuff. The breeding is overall mostly the same, but getting access to a Ditto raid means a virtual guarantee that you get a high IV Ditto instead of just getting one by random chance. Also, if you're really that desperate, you can actually just send one up from Let's Go, because you can change the language of Let's Go and do a catch combo there, and then from that, you will gain access to a 4 IV Ditto, because once you reach a catch combo 31, the next Ditto you catch is guaranteed to have at least 4 IVs. You send it up, and it can be used for Masuda method if you want a shiny hunt. If you don't want a shiny hunt, the language thing does not matter. And I accidentally deselected the Giratina. Oops. But, okay. Back to competitive after that blunder. I mean, they've just made it easier. The addition of Pokejobs made, like, EV training also easier, because it means you didn't have to rely on the SOS method. And it's not nearly as, like, difficult as super training was, since super training was a whole thing. Super training isn't that hard, but I have learned today that apparently it is possible to be bad at super training and hitting punching bags. I don't know how, but it happened. I don't understand. But yeah, it definitely makes it more user-friendly. Not to mention the rental teams, which can teach players important aspects about competitive, such as, like, what the teams are set up for. My personal favorite team is the team that sets up. You have the Duraludon with Light Screen and Reflect, and everyone else has a setup move. I like to use that in the Battle Tower, because it's actually really good, and, like, it has gotten me pretty far. It's the reason I have the Judge function right now. I usually just like to use it, because it's pretty fun, and I use it as a substitute when I don't have a competitive team. Not to mention just all the different ways to get competitive items. Like, now with that new ability item and the max suit that I mentioned earlier, those helping people get into competitive that want to use specific Pokemon but can't because they're locked behind specific conditions, like hidden abilities. It also makes it so that when you're shiny hunting, it's not a nightmare because you want a hidden ability of that Pokemon. So that's fun. I don't have to live in ultimate fear that the Sobble I get isn't gonna be hidden ability because I can just use the capsule on it. And there are just so many changes that made competitive more accessible, and I know people will complain that they've, like, taken 2 steps back, but because of the timer, but, like, honestly, I'm okay with the timer. I feel like sitting there in a 6v6 single battle for an entire hour is just gonna get boring. Like, I would concede. I would actually concede once it went over 30 minutes because I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna sit here and duel for an entire hour. And I know there are people who will, and people who have dedication, and I respect that. I do not have that kind of dedication to sit there for an hour, mentally just straining my brain to trying to read what other people are doing. It's difficult. I can't do it. I don't have the kind of strength. Just cut me off at 20 minutes. Please. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way. Like, I cannot be the only one that's like, I can't sit there for an hour. No, this definitely comes from my, like, indifference to singles, because I don't really play singles, I prefer doubles, because I find it more fun and entertaining and more strategic. And the timer doesn't really affect doubles as much, but, like, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I could also just be stupid, which is equally as probable. But that's just personally how I feel about the competitive scene. Number 4. Things I wish they did differently. If you watched my Sword and Shield playthrough, you will know how much I despised the very existence of these things. Number 4 is the roaming legendaries, or more specifically, the roaming birds. To the person that was recording with me, I am so, like, they know firsthand how actually aggressive I felt. There were certain things that I just did not say on camera, that I knew it would not be acceptable to say on camera. And, let's talk about one thing first. If Galarian Zapdos is your favorite Galarian bird, congratulations, you're right. And second of all, congratulations, because I will not be clowning on your favorite bird. Honestly, I don't get why people think it's hard to encounter the Zapdos. You fly to Motostoke, and you chase it, cutting it off where you can. It's like a race, just take the insides, and plus, it'll get worn out eventually. And you'll just be able to catch up to it. The other two, though, are what really pissed me off. I hated the other two. Moltres isn't that bad. It just goes in a loop, and you wait on the Isle of Armor Bridge and whistle under it. The problem is, if you miss, like I did, you have to wait again. And that's not fun. It's just time-consuming and tedious. Not to mention, when you encounter the thing, it has nasty plot, so if it breaks out of every ball, like it did out of all of mine, you're gonna have a not-so-good time trying to catch it. And it's gonna be annoying, and you're gonna hate it. And then there's Articuno, who appears in 2 places in the region, asking you to find it. With Sword and Shield's limited camera options, you can't look up. There isn't a place where you can just scout and look to see where the Articuno is, because the Pokédex doesn't exactly have that option like it did in X and Y. And once you find it, it'll play a little game with you. It'll split itself into 3 entities, one of which is real, and 2 of which are clones. It'll flap its wings if it's the real one, and then spin around, and you're supposed to find the real one. You know the problem? The camera angle. In all those games you see where you're supposed to spot the real thing, the difference between that and what Articuno did is the camera angle is so bad, you cannot see anything. Like, you're either inside the circle, can only see 2 at a time, or you're outside the circle and can barely see because one of them's always blocked. Like, there is no in between. So you basically just have to save scum, and if you get the wrong one, you have to reset and try again. Which, if you didn't, I don't know how. I physically do not know how. It's like that one moment. It's like I believe, the Iggy and Wendy fights in Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, where they split and spin, and it's almost impossible to tell which one is the real one. So like any normal person, I use the AoE. But I don't have that option here. And if you fail, you have to chase after it again. I hated that. I hated both of them so much. It doesn't help that I feel pretty subpar pretty meh about their designs already, because I don't think they're good. They both maintain elements that make them look really awkward, with Articuno's visor looking out of place and it looking like it has sleeves instead of wings, and Moltres looking like the fire is blurting out of its skin and it was being contained there. And also the back of its head just looks awkward. Just made for me not liking the birds at all. And Galarian Zapdos, in my opinion, is the only good one. Because it's cute, resembles a Chocobo, for all you Final Fantasy fans. And wasn't incredibly hell to gain access to, which we also stand. Do you ever notice I'm more passionate about the negative segments than the positive ones? Well, that's about to change. Number 4, things they did well. In every generation since 6, they've introduced a new gimmick. When Dynamax came out, it was met with a bit of controversy. Yeah, you know exactly where this is going. Number 4, things they did well, is Dynamax. I personally feel like Dynamax is the best thing that they've ever done, as far as gimmicks are concerned. And I hope they continue to improve, because they've only been good. Like, they have not only been good. Because Dynamax has been pretty good, and in my opinion, and I know this is unpopular, they've only improved with the gimmicks. Mega Evolution was a great concept at the time, and I, like many others, was very into it as a concept. But after Dynamax happened, it just kind of exposed all of Mega Evolution's flaws. Mega Evolution had two main problems: the element of choice and the element of being mindless. Everyone was running a Mega on their team, and because of that, you had to, or you were basically screwed. I didn't, and I struggled greatly. The problem is, rather than getting to pick any Pokemon you want, you sometimes begrudgingly have to choose one whether you like it or not to go on your team, or else it just won't be viable. Whereas with Dynamax, you can pick any Pokemon you want to Dynamax. The other problem with Megas is how mindless they are. Dynamax and Z-moves both required strategy of some sort, whereas Mega Evolution was just a mindless nuke button. Like, there was no strategy to it. There was no, this is the perfect time to use this move, this is the perfect time to use this, but if you screw it up, it's a detriment. No, you Mega Evolve whenever you want, usually when the Pokemon enters the field. Rarely do you not Mega, there are like a few cases where you don't. But that's the problem I had with Mega Evolution, and that I realized after Dynamax came out. Mega Evolution is really mindless. There's no strategy to it all. It's just press the Mega button and do the same thing you would normally do. And there's no creativity to it. Dynamax moves and Z moves, by an extent, both add something that has a bit more creativity. You have to be smart with how you use the move. Otherwise, it won't benefit you. And if you screw it up, hell, for all you know, it could be detrimental. But the ability to boost your team is really helpful. It makes certain abilities that previously weren't viable. For example, Surf Surfer. Surf Surfer was an ability that wasn't really important because, well, simply put, there was no way to set it up. You could have another Pokemon set it up and swap into Raichu, but then Raichu would be vulnerable. You could have the Raichu itself do the swapping, but then it would be vulnerable regardless. You see the problem here? But with Gen 8, if your Alolan Raichu Dynamaxes and uses Gmax, I don't know what the electric one's called, my memory is terrible, let's be honest. Uses Gmax something. It's Gmax something. If it uses the electric Gmax move, it wasn't even Gmax. If it uses the electric type Dynamax move, it'll set up the electric terrain for itself, but still attack, and it won't be vulnerable. This is why it's important. Dynamaxing adds a new flavor that we haven't seen before. With the terrains, the rain, and the stat drops / boosts, it can actually be really helpful. And Z-moves also had that element, but it's not as good as Dynamaxing. So, Z-moves, like, I'd explain in a different video, because we don't have the time for that in this one. But that's just how I feel about Dynamaxing. Dynamaxing was done so well. I hope Dynamaxing is brought back, because it's just better. It's just the best one they've done so far. It's a combination of the two, done really well. Let's talk about shinies. Shiny hunting is possibly one of the most done things in Pokemon. People love to shiny hunt. People have based their entire careers off shiny hunting. I have only recently gotten to it with Let's Go. I tried to get into it in Sun and Moon, but I quickly realized how incredibly impatient I was, and that there was no point, so I stopped doing it, and I never really shiny hunted again. Then Let's Go rolled around, and I was like, maybe I could get used to the shiny hunting method. So I did. I got used to it pretty quickly. Let's Go has the best shiny hunting method we've ever had, The ability to just simply catch combo and then turn off your brain until the shiny appears and do something else is so liberating. It let me do shiny hunting with so many other things. Like, I shiny hunted while I was recording BIS episodes and found one on camera, sorta. I didn't show the shiny to the camera for some reason. But I did find the shiny. But then Sword and Shield were wrong, and I'm like, hopefully it has a shiny hunting method that I enjoy. It didn't, unfortunately. I think Sword and Shield could have handled shiny hunting and shinies as a whole much better. First of all, the method was bugged. It only had a 3% chance to boost your odds instead of the full 100, so that's the first problem. Second of all, I did wish overworld shinies were a thing. I get an argument for them not being in because of how many Pokemon can be shiny in the wild area that would, like, drastically lower their rarity. But I just feel like that also hurts because it means I don't know when I'm failing a shiny. Like, I don't know when I'm failing a shiny normally because there could just be a specific patch of grass that I don't run over that can change the shiny. And I understand that that might be the first line of defense. But when it's in the overworld, just somehow it hurts more. And I wish overworld shinies were in the game, and I hope they get brought back, because they were such a nice feature in Let's Go. Let's end on a positive note, shall we? Number 5, things that they did well. Now, I've already touched on what I like they did with competitive, and how I like that they did the structure of the game. But I haven't talked about one of arguably the most important things in a game. The quality of life. The quality of life improvements in Sword and Shield are so good. First of all, it makes grinding so much easier. The inclusion of EXP candies means you can just skip grinding sessions entirely and quickly catch team members up if they're behind, or quickly catch them up because it's a Nuzlocke and they died. It makes it so helpful. It means you don't have to sit through pain and suffering for multiple hours. Not to mention, when a Pokemon levels up in mass, you no longer have to sit through mashing the button over and over again until you reach the level it is. You can just not. And I didn't realize that until I went back to Let's Go and I had to mash through the constant level ups. I was like, wow. Oh my god. I miss this so much. And you don't think you do. And then you live without the quality of life and you realize what it's done. Grinding in general in Let's Go wasn't that hard, but it still, honestly, is just made better in Sword and Shield, and that's important. Because if you know me, you know I take, like, the fairness and stuff of a specific game very seriously. Like, the level issue in Pokemon XD ruined the game for me. Same goes for Colosseum. But for a game to allow you to quickly catch up like that, I respect it. It's really good game design, in my opinion, and I just love it. There are other things that I feel like they did that were great, such as the inclusion of TRs, allowing you to teach more moves to your Pokemon than before. Maybe that should technically get its own category, but I personally feel like I hope TRs come back. I mean, if Dynamax comes back, then TRs will probably come back. Although, if it's gonna be a quote-unquote faithful remake, they may not come back at all. So, who knows? But I don't know. I love all the quality of life improvements in Sword and Shield. They're so good. Also, I like that they don't even have, like, HM replacements anymore. They just got rid of those because they felt like they weren't necessary. And just included other roadblocks. Because it also means I don't have to cycle between 60 different Pokemon when I want to ride. Which is nice. It's definitely nice. I could go on and on, but this video is long enough as this. So, yeah. But Yeah, I would like to once again reiterate that if I clowned on something that you really liked, that I really do like Sword and Shield. And if you asked me to rate these games, I would give them a 9 out of 10. And they are my second favorite Pokemon games of all time, only behind Black and White. Okay, maybe third if you include Detective Pikachu. Because I really like Detective Pikachu. Honestly, I'd give Detective Pikachu a solid, like, 9.1 out of 10. Yeah, Detective Pikachu gets, like, a 9 as well, in my opinion. I know that's really unpopular, but this isn't a video praising Detective Pikachu, although I might make one day, since we didn't get my Detective Pikachu sequel. I'm still excited about it. I just wanted my Detective Pikachu sequel, man. Also, we didn't get Pokepark 3 either, which is the alternative, so... But yeah, like I said, next week I will be talking about how I feel about the Diamond and Pearl remakes, and things I hope for them, and things I hope are not in the game. Rather than what I did with Sword and Shield, where I did 10 things I want, 10 things I don't want, I'll just do 5. I'll probably do a video format similar to this, where I do 5 things I don't want, and 5 things I do want, and just mash it into one video. Because honestly, I think this is better, and it means I don't have to make as many decisions, because, like, the whole reason I made this a 2-in-1 video is because I could not pick 10 things that I wish they did differently. Without, like, getting incredibly petty and picking things that, honestly, I didn't care much about. So, yeah. But, anyway, that is going to be it. And see you next time. Bye!